good evening and welcome to this live special edition of the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast, the show that is for the fans, by the fans. Let me fix my screen here real quick. I am your phenomenal host, Mr. Podcasting, Chris Belcher. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight, whether you're watching us on Twitch, whether you're watching on Facebook, whether you're watching on YouTube. Thanks so much for checking us out. My name is Chris Belcher, and our show drops every Monday and Thursday. In case you are just checking us out for the first time, number one, we greatly appreciate it. Number two, make sure you subscribe on whatever platform that you are watching us on. That way you get a notification every time we post new episodes, every time we go live. We go live after pay-per-views. We go live after big news that comes up. Obviously, today there's some big news going down, so we wanted to go live, get your reactions, as well as let you know our reactions in real time. If you are used to your traditional audio podcast, you will be able to find that on our regular stream later tonight or tomorrow. You'll find this. And on Mondays, we do shows about old school stuff. So this coming Monday, we're going to do a special episode about Kevin Sullivan. Yes, the Taskmaster. Some great stories that we've got planned for you guys for that episode. So make sure you tune in and subscribe, all those things. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are at PBW Podcast. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Chris Belcher24. Also, make sure you go check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, prowrestlingtees.com/PBW Podcast. Buy yourself a fancy t-shirt with our logo on it. Several designs over there. We greatly appreciate your support there. I've got my Facebook feed up here. I am watching you guys. Already comments are already coming in, so I greatly appreciate that. We're going to get to that here shortly. My tag team partner, my brother from another mother, Jared Justice, is not with me tonight. He had a work thing, the medical field calls at all hours. So Jared is doing the work thing tonight. So I am flying solo. Speaking of flying solo, our buddy Andy York took over the channel last Sunday night for a full recap of Double or Nothing. For you guys that tuned in to check out that show, thank you so much. Just so everybody knows, that has been the fastest rising video on our YouTube channel already, had the most views within 24 hours. So Andy, shout out to you on that. I'm not trying to one up you tonight, I promise, but make sure that you guys go back and check out that full review of Double or Nothing. It was a great review. I listened to it several times myself before and after watching Double or Nothing. I was not able to participate. It's an episode of this podcast that has ever aired that I haven't been on, so it was kind of strange. But anyway, that's beside the point. Andy did a great job. You guys are going to see more of Andy on this show if you enjoyed that. Now, on to the matter at hand. This will be a normal Pipe Bomb Wrestling podcast that you would get on a Thursday. I just decided it was a good idea to go live tonight because of, like I said, the releases and everything that happened. I thought it'd be a good time to be able to interact with you guys. So that's what we're going to kick our show off with. Normally, we kick it off with Beyond the Federation, our talk about everything outside of the world of WWE. We're going to save that to the end, though. We're going to kick it off with talking about the releases that happened today. Chad Fleener, longtime supporter of the podcast, has already commented on Facebook and said, tell me that it's not true. Well, Chad, I wish I could tell you that it's not true, but it is true. Oh, it's true, as Kurt Angle would say. Braun Strowman, Ruby Riott, Alistair Black, Santana Garrett, Buddy Murphy, Lana, I think I said Ruby Riott already. I'll say it again, Ruby Riott. Those superstars were released today from the WWE. And I know there's a lot of mixed emotions going on about all those. I know that Samoa Joe was the big name several weeks back, right after WrestleMania, they got released. So that got a lot of traction as well. But honestly, if I'm being honest, I was commenting on Facebook with Chad Fleener earlier, and I told him, I said, I probably have some unpopular opinions about this. And I probably do. So I'm going to give them to you. I'm not surprised by any of these, if you want me to be honest. I'm just not. I'm really not. Braun Strowman, yes, he was in a WrestleMania match with a McMahon. earlier this year. He's been in some very big spots. He even had a Universal title run, won the championship at WrestleMania last year. Now, there was some other circumstances involved in that, so I don't want to say I don't count that, but he would not have been champion had things worked out the way that WWE had planned. Let's put it that way. So Braun Strowman was the big name, obviously. I know there's a lot of Braun Strowman fans out there that are probably watching. At one point, I can't say that I'm not a Braun Strowman fan, but I don't know. Something just didn't sit right with me with Braun Strowman. Maybe it's the way that he was presented. Maybe it was the way that, I don't know. It just felt like that Braun Strowman never really hit it for me, if that makes any sense. Was talking with Jared earlier, and I said, I feel like the high point of Braun Strowman, he broke away from the Wyatt family in into 2016, I think, something like that. The high point for me for Braun Strowman was when he, at WrestleMania 34, I think he was his hottest at WrestleMania 34 when he was tag team with Nicholas. I think they could have done some big things with Braun Strowman around WrestleMania 34, and they didn't do it. They had him team up with John Cone's son. No offense to Nicholas, no offense to John Cone, but it just wasn't the right thing for Strowman, I don't think. Jared and I were there, and it seemed like it took forever for that to materialize. And going back and watching it, obviously, it didn't take that long, but it seemed like, I know the point they were trying to make at WrestleMania 34 is that Braun Strowman can do it on his own. I get that. That's cool. But it missed the mark for me. And I really think Braun Strowman was at his peak of popularity around that time. And that's what they did with him. And then you come up the next year, I think it was the next year, at the Saudi show, and he had a shot at Brock Lesnar for the title. And rumor and innuendo says that Braun was going to win the title over Brock Lesnar at that Saudi show. Didn't happen. Instead, Brock squashed him in about 5 minutes. So, too little, too late when they finally put the Universal title on him against Goldberg at WrestleMania, especially at the beginning of a pandemic. I think if you would have put the title on Braun Strowman a lot sooner, then Braun Strowman could have had a run with it. Maybe he doesn't get released at this point. However, I will say that Braun Strowman is a homegrown talent. He came into WWE without wrestling experience, and they trained him up, put him on television. He's a big star. Now he has the opportunity, especially with us seeing the light at the end of the tunnel of the pandemic. Braun Strowman now has the opportunity to go out, make a name for himself on the independent scene, and do well for himself, and then maybe come back later on. So that's always a possibility. My dad, a faithful watcher of our live shows, appreciate that, commented on Facebook and said that Braun was always kind of a stiff worker and he didn't really grow as a wrestler. I can agree with that. I think if you look at the giants of the wrestling industry over the years, I don't think that they need a big moveset. I don't think they need to grow as a wrestler. I think as far as storytelling in the ring, yes, they need to grow. But I think as far as like a move set, the big guys only had 5 or 6 moves and that's it. And Braun Strowman, didn't have more than 5 or 6 moves himself. But I think what you mean is that he didn't really grow, is his character really stayed the same. After he split from the Wyatt family, his character did not really change when he went from a heel to a babyface and back and all that kind of stuff. He shaved his head, took his shirt off, put his shirt back on, put a pair of gloves on. Regardless, he didn't really change. He didn't evolve. We didn't see another side of Braun Strowman. The only evolution we really saw of Braun Strowman was when he was in the mixed tag challenge with Alexa Bliss. So you saw a little bit of a different side there, but that aired on Facebook, not on regular TV, and they didn't bring those storylines onto television, so you didn't really see that. So I think Braun Strowman, his release does not surprise me for all those reasons that I just listed. Chad Fleener just commented and said, could pull a Drew McIntyre. You're exactly right, Chad. Drew McIntyre went and he made a name for himself in Impact and overseas. and all these other places. And then he came back and he went to NXT and really just shot up the rankings. And that was that, man. I mean, now Drew McIntyre is the number one guy on Monday Night Raw. Even though he's not the champion, he's the number one guy on Monday Night Raw. So I think Braun Strowman has a good chance to be able to do something like that. Another guy that has a good chance to do something like that is Aleister Black. He got released today. And Aleister Black made a name for himself on the independent scene before coming to WWE. Came to WWE, had a great couple of years, especially in NXT, came to the main roster, and they didn't really... Aleister Black did a live Twitch today, if anybody checked that out. I listened to it, and it was very, very interesting. But Alistair said that, number one, any report that anybody ever read about Vince McMahon not being a fan of the Aleister Black character, he said that was totally false. Anything you read about that, it was totally false. Vince McMahon loved the Aleister Black character. So that just goes to show you, number one, you can't believe the people that write on the dirt sheets. I don't. So anyway, Alistair said that Vince was a fan. He loved his out-of-the-box creativity. And he had a great relationship with creative, with Bruce Pritchard, with all those guys. So Alistair's message was, don't get mad at creative. That these are great people and that they absolutely do the best that they can do. I mean, heck, the last 14 months we've been in the middle of a pandemic. So you can't really blame creative because their backs were up against the wall too, just like everybody else's. So I'm not surprised either with Aleister Black's release, honestly. The thing that gets me about Aleister is that they were pushing him. He was making a comeback. You know, he said in that Twitch that he had a new theme music. They were just scratching the surface of this new dark father character type thing that he was doing. So they had some plans for him. But the reason he was given, much like all these other people, is that budget cuts. And I'll get to that in just a second because I think there's something to that. I really do. So Aleister Black is the one that surprises everybody. Josh Tharp, longtime friend, man, I haven't heard from you in a while. Good to see you, man. Thanks for checking us out. Says on Facebook, he said he wasn't surprised with Braun's release. He thinks that AEW will go after some of these releases. Yeah, I think so too. I think AEW has a shot to get some of these guys. Here's what I'm scared of about AEW. Is that they go after guys like Rusev. Okay. They go after guys like Christian Cage, go after guys like Big Show, like Mark Henry, all of these Sting, for example, all of these WWE guys that have gotten released and they bring them in. That's fantastic. Everybody gets so excited about them. Can't wait to see them, yada, yada, yada. And then they go right back to the mid card, right where they are in WWE. They don't get pushed. So that's my fear with AEW is they'll bring them in and do nothing with them. Now, Miro is the TNT champion. Don't get me wrong. He's done pretty well for himself so far. They're finally starting to pick him back up a little bit. I know Big Show and Mark Henry, they're probably not in, I'm not going to say they're not in great condition, but their wrestling career is probably behind them for the most part. So I can't really lump those guys into it. But AEW is not pushing these guys to the moon like a lot of people would think they would. I can guarantee you that if they brought Aleister Black in, he's not going to debut to face Kenny Omega. It's not going to happen. I'm not saying that he has to do that to make an impact. I don't think Braun Strowman will do that either. I think that those guys could be brought in. They can make an impact. AEW really doesn't have any wrestling giants. I mean, they've got Lance Archer. They've got Luchasaurus. But aside from that, they don't have anybody like Braun Strowman. So you get somebody like Braun Strowman in there, they could do something with him, but are they going to put him in the world title picture? No, they're probably not. I'm not saying the world title picture is the end all be all, but it is the ultimate goal of everybody, right? You want to be world champion. You want to be on top. So I don't know. I think these guys have a shot to succeed in AEW. I think the one that 100% is going to AEW is Lana because of Rusev. I think that I'm not saying she could help their women's division, but she could get in there and be with her husband and do some stuff. And AEW has a large reach as far as network television, and Lana's always been, one to want the spotlight, something like that. So I think Lana could benefit from that. Our buddy Andy York, who hosted our post show, thanks for doing that, Andy. He is on YouTube right now, and he said, to me, the Ruby Riott release hurt the most. I can definitely see that. Ruby Riott, another one that made a name for herself on the indies before WWE. I'm not saying that WWE didn't know what to do with Ruby, but they could have done a lot more. The Riott Squad was a good thing. I don't think anybody could argue with that. If you're pushing a tag team division for the women, Riott Squad had to be right up there. So I think that hurt. I think Ruby, they could have done a lot more with Ruby. I think she could have been a women's champion on a brand, especially when the Riott Squad was running hot, the three of them. I mean, I think you put a title on her and you make that group, the focus. So I think that they missed the boat on that. I really do. So Ruby Riott, Buddy Murphy is going to be a great fit in AEW, I think. Here's what we got to remember about these releases right now. The pandemic is, Andy, yeah, they should honestly get rid of the women's tag titles. I agree now that there's tag titles in NXT for the women. I think they should. I don't think that they should have done that. That's where it put over the line to me. That's just my opinion. But somebody on here with the username Roman Reigns says, respect me, acknowledge me. All right, cool. Yeah, Roman Reigns, tribal chief. We'll get there in a little bit. But right now we're talking about these releases. So here's the thing that we all got to remember is that the pandemic is, we see the light at the end of the tunnel of the pandemic, and a lot of these indie shows are going to start coming back around. A lot of these guys are going to be able to find work on the indie scene later on. So I think they're going to be fine. You got a lot of these recent guys that have been released, Nona and FTR, and you got a couple of those guys tweeting today that are saying, hey, the future is bright for all of these guys. Be your own boss, make your own schedule, make your own money. There's money to be made in the wrestling business outside of the WWE. And that's the reality of it, honestly. So I think these guys are going to be fine. What I was going to mention earlier is I think something bigger is at play here. And it's been rumored for a long time, but I think now more than ever, there is a strong possibility that WWE gets sold to a major company. I think now more than ever. We've seen the last year, 2 years, maybe even 3 years, honestly. There's a restructuring. There's all these budget cut releases, all these releases that blow our minds as wrestling fans. I read today that WWE is saving $1 million per year by releasing Braun Strowman. I'm sorry, I'd do it too. I'm just saying. Again, unpopular opinion. You can send all of your hate tweets at Chris Belcher 24 right there. Unpopular opinion, that's fine. But if you're saving $1 million a year, I say go for it. But I think WWE is about to be up for sale. I really do, if I'm being honest. A lot of restructuring, like I said. Maybe it's a company. I don't know. There's a lot of companies out there that could make it happen, but you got to think. You've got the Saudi Arabia money that you're going to want to hold on to. You've got the Peacock money. You've got all of these things that could be big assets for a company. The problem is that Vince is not going to go away anytime soon. Triple H is not going to go away anytime soon. So it's going to have to be a deal where those guys are still in power as far as wrestling is concerned, but they're owned by somebody else. They have to answer to somebody else. It's definitely a tricky situation, but I think a sale is definitely possible. If you are just now joining us, my name's Chris Belcher, and this is the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast, the show that is for the fans, by the fans. We appreciate you checking out our live stream tonight. We like to do this every now and then, especially after pay-per-views. So make sure you join us. Our regular episodes drop on Mondays and Thursdays. You get a little bit of new school, old school. There's something for everybody on the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast. You can follow us all over social media at PBW Podcast, buy yourself a t-shirt as well. ProWrestlingTees.com/PBW podcast. And if you forget all of those things, we've got a fancy little ticker right here at the bottom that will remind you of them all. Wherever you are listening or watching our podcast, whether it's on YouTube, Twitch, on Facebook, you're listening on Apple Music, you're listening on Google Play, Anchor, Spotify, make sure you hit that subscribe button. That way you get an alert every time a new episode drops. We greatly appreciate you tuning in on this Wednesday night. Very much appreciate it. We just went through the releases. Again, if you've got comments or questions, we're going to be here for a little bit. So shoot us some comments or questions. We'll be happy to talk about it. I am flying solo tonight. I have no tag team partner. So swig of sweet tea for the working man. Hang on. Very professional. I know somebody's got to do it. All right. So we got through all the releases. Let's talk about some things that happened in WWE this week. Before we do, though, got to give a shout out on this Wednesday night. It is a very happy birthday to my boy right here, the phenomenal AJ Styles. Happy birthday to the man, one of the best to ever lace up a pair of boots. Probably the best in-ring performer right now. I know that a bunch of people give me some hate for that. Again, send your hate tweets to @ChrisBelcher24. All you Roman Reigns fans, all you Kenny Omega fans, all that kind of stuff. AJ Styles is still the man. I don't care if he is in a feud with Elias and Jackson Riker and holding the tag titles with a guy who really can't wrestle yet. But anyway, it's beside the point. AJ Styles is the man. If you're going to celebrate AJ's birthday like I am, make sure you go out of your way and watch a great AJ Styles match. One that I would recommend, probably my personal favorite of his WWE run, is his match at Money in the Bank 2019 with Seth Rollins for the Universal Championship. A lot of people sleep on that match because it was just at a pay-per-view. It wasn't at a big time pay-per-view. I guess Money in the Bank is one of the bigger pay-per-views now, but you get what I mean. It wasn't at a SummerSlam or a Mania. Seth Rollins against AJ Styles. Do yourself a favor. Go watch it. It's fantastic. I love that match. And it's amazing the stuff that, AJ Styles has been in WWE since 2016, and he's a Grand Slam champion, and he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt. He probably was before he got to WWE, but if you're going to put him in a WWE Hall of Fame, I mean, his career alone in WWE speaks for itself. So happy birthday to the phenomenal AJ Styles. Let's get to some stuff from Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, and then we'll hit some AEW Double or Nothing. Take your comments and questions and call it a night. Let's go to SmackDown. SmackDown has really been the show that's really carried the weight of everything lately. It's really been, as far as continuity goes, storytelling goes, it's been great. It really has. But this past week on SmackDown, I was kind of let down, man. I don't feel like enough happened. Real quick before we keep going, our boy Andy, even though I hated it at the time, AJ, I was talking about AJ's matches with Roman were dope. Yes, they absolutely were. I think it was it Payback that year with the first match and Extreme Rules, the second match? That Extreme Rules match is the one Seth Rollins came back at the end of. I think Payback was the other one. Anyway, yeah, those matches were phenomenal. No pun intended. Actually, pun intended. There was a spear off the top rope to finish the match. AJ was going for phenomenal forearm. Real quick before we keep going, I guess, I'm getting all these comments, and I certainly want to address them in real time as much as possible. Peyton Ison joining us on Facebook. Thanks, Peyton. I appreciate you hanging out with us. Says that, what do you think the releases mean as far as I'm saying it was a budget cut? I kind of hit on that just a second ago, but I'll touch on it one more time here. I think the releases as far as a budget cut means that a sale is coming. I know that might be hard to believe. I know a lot of people think Vince McMahon is an egomaniac and he would never sell and all this other kind of stuff. But I think a sale is coming with WWE. I mean, it's no more true than when, they've got these billion-dollar television deals. Well, then this Peacock deal comes along. To me, that really solidified it. When they sold their network to Peacock, it's like, okay, There's something bigger at play here. And you see all the time about Triple H and Stephanie and Vince selling some of their stock in the company. It's like, no, wait a minute. They wouldn't do that for nothing. You know what I mean? So I fully believe that a sale of WWE is coming. It may not be in 2020, I'm sorry, 2020 is already passed. Woo! May not be in 2021, but I believe that a sale is coming. Mark my words. You can call me out if it happens or if it doesn't happen. So SmackDown this week, the one thing that really jumped out to me, like I said, I feel like a lot happened on SmackDown. We saw the last appearance of Ruby Riott. I think they wrestled on SmackDown against, I think they wrestled Natty and Tamina. Saw her last appearance. But the one thing that really jumped out to me is the phenomenal match that kicked off SmackDown. The Street Profits taking on the Usos. Usos tagging up for the first time in a year. Jimmy Uso's second match since returning from his torn ACL at last year's WrestleMania. It was a phenomenal match. Really, I'm using the word phenomenal too much tonight. Sorry, guys. I'll find another word. Anyway, it really was a fantastic match. Usos didn't look like they had missed a step. They've always been one of my favorite tag teams, so I am partial to the Usos. Street Profits throwing down their best stuff right there. It really was a great match. Go out of your way to watch the first match from SmackDown this week. I'm not sure what to make. Here's your Roman Reigns talk. I'm not sure what to make of this Roman Reigns Uso stuff. What I mean by that is I feel like the Usos can't break up. Again, send your hate tweets to @ChrisBelcher24. I don't feel like the Usos can break up. And it's not because they're twin brothers or whatever. It's just like, I don't know. I just feel like they will flounder as singles guys. My argument for that is the only reason that Jey Uso has succeeded as a singles wrestler over the last year is because Roman Reigns has done so well. And they've been able to piggyback on Roman's success. So I just don't know that they can succeed on their own. I'm not saying that it's going to lead to them going on their own. It sure looks like it, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Usos are going to stick around. So to me, this storyline of them fighting with Roman and, control of the family and yada, 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 I'm having a hard time believing it. That's just me. I don't know. I get where they're coming from, but I don't know. Dad, I love his comment. Dad says, shout out to Andy York because he knows he's watching. The Usos are 10 times better than the Young Bucks. Have to agree. Have to agree with that. The Young Bucks are doing some of their best work, and we're going to get to that here in just a few minutes. But the Usos are way better than the Young Bucks. Let's put it that way. Peyton, I see your comment there about the sell. Let me get to that in just a second. Let's move over to Monday Night Raw real quick. Andy says this should be building to a match against Roman. Rock. Sorry. It's all building. Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree that this is all building to a match against The Rock. No doubt about it. I'm just having a hard time believing that the Usos, I don't know. Usos are one of my favorite teams, so I just can't buy it. That's all there is to it. It's not that it's a bad storyline, but I just don't buy it. Let's go to Monday Night Raw real quick. New lead announcer on Monday Night Raw, just like Andy and I talked about on last week's podcast, Jimmy Smith from the world of Bellator and American Ninja Warrior. He's done some stuff with NXT as well. He is now the new play-by-play. Try that again. Take a shot. Play-by-play announcer on Monday Night Raw. So I think he did great for his first time out, honestly. He's gotten some good reviews from some people in the world of wrestling. I know Michael Cole is pretty high on him. So I'm totally cool with Jimmy Smith. There were a lot of times during the night that I couldn't really pick his voice out between Saxton's and Corey Graves. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing either. I think that means that his voice fits in really well with the commentary. So week number 1, I'm all in on Jimmy Smith. I'm totally good with that. The other thing that I'm all in on was this Drew McIntyre Kofi Kingston main event. Again, another match for you to go out of your way to watch from this week's Monday Night Raw, or from this week's current product, really. Drew McIntyre and Kofi Kingston tore the house down in the main event. They really, really did. So make sure that you guys go check that out. Just some unbelievable spots. I don't want to spoil it for you. These guys went like 3 segments. Kofi and Woods came out in their Power Ranger inspired gear. That was fantastic. So I'm all for it. Great, great, great match between these guys. Can't really say much more about it. You got Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre going on at it one more time at Hell in a Cell coming up in a couple of weeks. And I mean, it's got to be inside the cell to be able to, put a bow on this feud, I would think. So I know some people are probably tired of seeing those two go at it, but you got to pay the feud off somehow. One more second so we get sweet tea for the working man. All right. He's definitely an upgrade, Andy says. Who's an upgrade? Pronouns, pal, as Bruce Pritchard would say. Who's an upgrade? Anyway, you are listening to the Bite Bomb Wrestling Podcast. If you are just now joining us, I am your phenomenal host, Mr. Podcasting, Chris Belcher, and I am flying solo tonight. So make sure that you send in your comments, your questions, your concerns. We will hit them all on this show. We've already covered all the releases. I still see some comments coming in. So we're going to hit those and what all of that means. We just covered a little bit of Raw, just covered a little bit of SmackDown. For all of this coverage, we bring it to you twice a week, each and every week on Mondays and Thursdays. So make sure that you subscribe to our show on whatever platform you're watching or you're listening on. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Woo! At PBW Podcast. You can follow me. I'm at Chris Belcher 24. Make sure you buy a t-shirt from us at ProWrestlingTees.com/PBW Podcast. Again, shows every Monday and Wednesday. Andy says the new announcer. He's definitely an upgrade. Yes. Jimmy Smith, definitely an upgrade. Peyton, let me go back to your comment here on Facebook if you're still tuning in. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. He says, who do you think they would sell to? Just can't imagine him doing it because he's played a big part in WWE. Yes, that's true. And then Dad kind of followed that up on a comment and said, Vince will only sell if the family will stay in charge. Talking about all the McMahons and Triple H. Yes, I agree. I don't want to say that Vince sees the writing on the wall as far as him winding his career down, but he might. I don't know for sure. But I think Dad's absolutely right. He's only going to sell if they are still able to be in charge in some form or fashion to control the wrestling. Listen to me. To control the wrestling aspect of the business, they're still going to have to be in charge. To have somebody else like Disney or like ABC or what have you control the business aspect of the company, okay, well, I think they can relinquish that. I think that's fine. So, I think it's a possibility. I'm not saying Vince is, again, not saying he's seeing the writing on the wall, but I think that it's possible that Vince sees that his time might be coming to his close as far as age goes. The guy's like 76 or something like that. He's getting up there. He only sleeps like 4 hours a night, and he eats like a madman, and he works out 2 or 3 times a day. I mean, come on. So you got to wind down at some point. So it just makes me think that maybe that's a possibility. But Dad's absolutely right. 3 generations of wrestling owners and in this company, absolutely. And they're still going to stay in power in some way, shape, or form. All right. Let's move on to NXT. That is the reason we have moved our shows to Thursdays, is so we can talk about NXT. And what a chaotic episode it was this week. I think that's what Vic Joseph called it, was chaotic. Started out with the number 1 contenders triple threat match between Johnny Gargano, Pete Dunne, and Kyle O'Reilly. The winner is to face Karrion Kross at NXT TakeOver in your house. But Adam Cole interrupted the match. We see the return of Adam Cole, finally. He interrupts the match. He causes the match to be a no contest. He comes out later. He calls out Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross comes out and he says, okay, fine. Put all 5 of us in there. A fatal 5-way for the NXT Championship coming up at TakeOver in your house. So again, it's Johnny Gargano, it's Pete Dunne, it's Kyle O'Reilly, it's Adam Cole, and it's Karrion Kross, all 5 vying for the NXT Championship. That is going to be an awesome show. Next week on the podcast, we will have a full rundown of the card of NXT TakeOver in your house. But what a show it is shaping up to be already. You've got Cameron Grimes versus LA Knight, basically battling for the approval of Ted DiBiase, which is fantastic. You have Ember Moon, who is going to challenge Raquel Gonzalez for the NXT Women's Championship. Not Io Shirai, get them mixed up. Xia Li. Xia Li is going to be taking on Mercedes Martinez, which should be a pretty good match. And I would say that Bronson Reed will be defending the North American Championship as well. Andy commenting that he loves the Cole and Cross promo. I mean, Adam Cole, spot on, man, when he says, he's talking to Karrion Kross, he says, this brand has done everything in their power to make you feel special. The lights, the fog machine, the girl, the entrance. You know what they do to make Adam Cole feel special? They ring the freaking bell. And that is absolutely right. I mean, Adam Cole, in the words of what everybody says about Shawn Michaels, Adam Cole can have a match with a broomstick. And he's that good. So I think this match, this Fatal 5-Way, is going to be fantastic. I love Adam Cole coming back. However, I'd still think Karrion Kross retains the championship. I don't think it's time to take the title off of him just yet, unless they want to move him up to the main roster, which we see how that's played out for some NXT talent. So I don't know how that's going to go just yet. Excuse me. Maybe Adam Cole does win the title back. I don't know. But maybe this somehow sets up Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly to go back at it, bring in Bobby Fish, and maybe the return of Roderick Strong. Then we finally get our Fatal 4-Way between the Undisputed Era. That might happen. I don't know. I think the only people that have a shot to win this match is Adam Cole and Karrion Kross. I think Gargano's in there to help people look good. I think Pete Dunne's in there to help people look good. And I think Kyle O'Reilly's in there to get pushed. I think Kyle O'Reilly should come out of this looking the best out of all of them. Multi-man matches, somebody always looks better than everybody else. I think Kyle O'Reilly's that guy for this match. But I think ultimately, as far as the results go, it's either Karrion Kross or it's Adam Cole. One or the other. Sorry. I mentioned Cameron Grimes, LA Knight, Ted DiBiase, all that kind of stuff. That was okay this week. It really got some time as far as the LA Knight match is concerned with Jake Atlas. Jake Atlas has now beaten both LA Knight and Cameron Grimes. Could see Ted DiBiase align himself with Jake Atlas and try to push him a little bit. I don't know. It should be interesting, though. I really am a fan of all this that's going on with them, but I don't know. We'll see where it goes. I'm a huge fan of Cameron Grimes. Everybody that's listening to this podcast knows that. So I think it's good stuff. I really do. Overall, NXT is a fantastic show. Y'all need to make sure you're checking it out each and every Tuesday night, and then we'll recap it here on Thursdays for you. If you're not watching NXT, what the heck is wrong with you? Come on, people. All right. You are listening once again to the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast, the show that is for the fans, by the fans. I am your phenomenal host, Mr. Podcasting, Chris Belcher. You can follow me on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram right there at Chris Belcher 24. You can follow the show at PBW Podcast on all 3 of those platforms as well. Make sure you subscribe wherever you are listening to our show or watching our show. Thanks for tuning in. Leave us a comment. Leave us a review. Hit that subscribe button so you get a notification every time we go live. New episodes drop every Monday and Thursday. Make sure you tune in. There is something for everybody, whether you like AEW, whether you like new school WWE, old school WWE, you like the NWA, ECW, WCW, Smoky Mountain Wrestling, all points in between. Make sure you check out our show because, again, there's something for everybody. Which brings me to this coming Monday on our show, we're going to do a deep dive on Kevin Sullivan. That's right. Why are we talking about Kevin Sullivan? Because there's some fantastic stories. So make sure you check us out on Monday. My buddy Mike Irwin, who I was roommates with in college for a year, just tuned in and said, please tell me I didn't just tune into the end. No, we're pretty close to the end. But no, we are not at the end just yet. If you're looking for release talk, hit me up with a comment or question. I'll address it towards the end. We have already talked about that, but I'll be happy to recap a little bit of it for you and for anybody else that is just now joining us. But right now, we're going to talk about a little about AEW Double or Nothing. Again, I was not able to be on the podcast last week or this past Sunday. Andy York did a fantastic job filling in for me and recapping Double or Nothing. Appreciate that, Andy. If you haven't checked out Andy's recap, you can do that on our YouTube channel, or if you want the audio version, it's on our regular podcast feed. So check that out. I'm not going to steal all of Andy's thunder. I'm not going to go totally into Double or Nothing. I'm just going to give a couple of my critiques and my perspective on what happened, what I thought was good, what I thought was bad, what I thought could have been better. So, first of all, I love the hard cam change. I don't know if anybody else noticed that but me, but the hard cam change where they switched up the entrance, they went back to the old Daily's Place look. I really enjoyed that. The reason is because it gives the show a different feel. Doesn't look like every other wrestling show. So I'm a huge fan of it. I thought it was great. Definitely thought it was a bit of an adjustment because they've been going for a year with the hard cam going one way, and now they've switched it. So it's definitely an adjustment, but I like it. Thought it was cool. That was a cool production element for the show. A not so cool production element for the show that Andy said that I was going to call out. Here you go, Andy. I'm calling it out. Was the stupid stuff in the Battle Royal. I hate multi-man matches in AEW for the simple fact that everybody has their creative liberties. They have their creative freedoms. They're going to do whatever they want to do. That's fine. But you've got to tell the production people when they need to hit a certain spot, because guess what? If they don't know that a spot's coming, they're not going to hit it. I remember, I think it was the first Double or Nothing show. It was the Young Bucks against the Lucha Brothers. And there was this huge dive on the outside by Nick Jackson, I think it was, that the camera didn't even see. The crowd totally reacted to it, but nobody at home saw it. You got to see that stuff. This Double or Nothing in the Battle Royal, you miss the first encounter of Christian and Matt Hardy. Something that no matter if you're a WWE fan or AEW fan or not, you wanted to see that. And the camera missed it. Come on, people. Come on. Just come on. Like, let's get it together. Y'all been doing this for a long time now, long enough to where this should not be an excuse. Come on. Andy, that was my DraftKings bet that you would hate it. Yep, you're absolutely right. I did hate it. So just a lot of stuff that they missed on that. Mike Irwin commented on Facebook and he said they made the right decision, though, to go with Jungle Boy going over. AEW reads the crowd much better than WWE. I would say yes to an extent. I'm not going to say that WWE does everything right, because clearly they don't. I have been called a WWE shill, and I will take that to my grave because I am. But I think that this whole Roman Reigns thing, I think, is what the fans wanted for a long time, but they're just now getting it. And I think WWE was scared to take a chance on it with fans because they didn't think they would buy it or what have you. So I feel like that they are listening to them. It's just a little bit later. I think they finally have the chance to be able to pull the trigger on this Roman Reigns thing with the pandemic and with no fans. So they can test it out, get it to a point where when fans do come back, they're going to boo Roman Reigns. So I think they do listen to them to an extent. Now, I will say that AEW, yes, they are listening to their fans very, very well. Jungle Boy going over is absolutely the right decision. Christian coming in the ring and giving him the nod and showing his support, again, absolutely agree with that. I think Jungle Boy was the right move. Andy, great comment. It doesn't help that fans change their mind on a daily basis. You're absolutely right. Yep. Fans change their mind all the time. So it's hard to follow them. But I'm fine with Jungle Boy going over. I am disappointed though that Leo Rush was a surprise entrant. I think that you could have debuted him at a different point in not necessarily being the Joker of the Battle Royal. Could have debuted him at a different point, and the surprise would have been just as good. I'm not sure who you would have put as the Joker there, but I would have said like Rich Swann, something like that. Or I think Big Show would have been a good Joker for that. Mike Irwin responding to me. Yeah, the heel turn is what we wanted for years. We hated Super Roman like we did Super Cena. Now my best argument is everything that happened with The Fiend. Define everything. Like, are you talking like when The Fiend got set on fire? Or are you talking about just everything in general? Like him losing to Goldberg or whatever. Heather Fisher, my former coworker, Heather Fisher, thank you for checking it out. I should be a DJ. I should be a DJ. If you know somebody who needs a DJ and is going to pay me well, hit me up. I'll gladly take a DJ job. So, Mike, clarify what you mean, and I'll address that here. But let's go through some more AEW stuff. Mark Henry being the surprise of the night. Okay, cool. Again, I think you could have saved that for a Dynamite, and it would have been just as impactful. I've never been a Mark Henry fan. I'm just gonna throw that out there. I very much enjoy his work on Busted Open with Bully Ray, Dave LaGreca, Tommy Dreamer, that crew. But as far as a character and in-ring goes, I've never been a Mark Henry fan. Personally, I don't think he needs to be in the Hall of Fame. Send your hate tweets right here at Chris Belcher 24. Give me your hate comments. I'll take them all day long. I don't think Mark Henry should have been in the WWE Hall of Fame. That's just me. But, all right, Andy, I'll get to that in just a second. Let me wrap this AEW stuff up, and then we'll get back to the Fiend. Let's talk about the Bucks and Jon Moxley real quick. I'm not a fan of Moxley using the Wild Thing music. I don't think it fits his character at all in any way, shape, or form. I get that that's like a big fight feel thing. I think that, I think he used it in Japan. Okay, fine. That's cool. Whatever. But I don't like his entrance music that he had to begin with in AEW really fit what he was doing. It was great for him. It fit him perfectly. Don't change it. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Just don't change it. I was a big fan of it. So I hate that they changed that. I think the Young Bucks gear for the show looked very Rock and Roll Express like. There's a shout out for you, Dad. I thought the Young Bucks gear looked very Rock and Roll Express like. No, Dad, I know you're watching. I know what you're thinking. I am not comparing the Young Bucks to the Rock and Roll Express, okay? Not doing that. What I'm saying is their gear reminded me of the Rock and Roll Express, okay? I wasn't a huge fan of the finish. I'm not saying that Mox and Kingston should have gone over. I'm just saying I didn't like the 5 BTE triggers and all that kind of stuff. Here you go, Andy. Here's what you're waiting on me to talk about. Britt Baker, DMD. The doctor is in the house and is finally the AEW Women's Champion. Hallelujah. It's about time that they crown her the face of the AEW Women's Division. Finally, with the Women's Division, they're doing something right. I don't have to lose hope now. Britt Baker has claimed her rightful place, and I am very, very grateful that she has done that. It's finally time to put the title on her. I think it's past time, but let's give her a run with it. I thought the match was a little shaky, really picked up towards the end. I'm a huge fan of the finish for sure. Let's talk about Sting. Let's talk about Darby Allin, Ethan Page, and Scorpio Sky. Sting no-selling the suplex on the ramp was incredible. I loved it. Then the dive off the stack of chips, that was great. It was great to have Sting in there doing a couple of things, but it's time for him to go away for a little while. I love Sting just as much as the next guy. Don't get me wrong. I do, but it's time for him to go away. Let's make Sting an attraction. He needs to show up for big dynamites and big pay-per-views, not just trot out there, not say a word, and be done for the week. They're overusing Sting, and I don't like it. So we got the match out of the way. Okay, now let's bring him on to some big feud with somebody big. Let's get one of these big dream matches with like Jericho or somebody against Sting before he quits wrestling altogether. The Stadium Stampede match. I was a huge fan of the Stadium Stampede match. I'll be honest. It wasn't gimmicky, wasn't hokey. I was a big fan. I really was. I recommend anybody go back and watch it because it was really a good street fight around the whole building. I would be anxious to know what parts were actually live and what parts were taped. Andy once says, can we talk about Tully Blanchard? Yeah, that was fantastic, wasn't it? Tully Blanchard, call back to the Bunkhouse Stampede. That was pretty great. I thought it was really cool. The whole thing was just really well done. Throwing in Urban Meyer and Charlie Strong, Conan as the DJ in the nightclub, all that was really, really cool. I was a big fan of Stadium Stampede. I really was. Just everything about it worked really well for me. Even the chair thing where Sean Spears was sitting in the room of chairs and the spotlight was on him. I didn't hate that. Like, that was hokey, but I didn't hate it. AEW is really pushing Sammy Guevara really hard. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but they're pushing him really hard, and I dig it. From his showing at Blood and Guts to this Stadium Stampede, I thought it was really, really good. My only critique of Stadium Stampede was two things. In order for the Pinnacle to get over as the big group in AEW, they had to dethrone the Inner Circle somehow, some way. I thought they would do it in this match, and they did not. So I was kind of disappointed in that. But regardless, that was my first critique. My second critique is I did not like the finish. And what I mean by that is I thought that everybody should have come out of the back and at least had some spot in front of the fans, but they didn't. You had Jericho and MJF, and then you had Spears and Guevara, and that was it. So I thought there should have at least been a spot or two where everybody comes out in front of the crowd, does a couple of things, and then we're done. But I don't know. Regardless, the match was good. The finish that I did not like did not take away from the match for me. So I'm good with that. Overall, I thought Double or Nothing was good. I would maybe great. I give it a B. In the middle of the road. A little above middle of the road, maybe. B plus. Our buddy Jason Backowitz, my best friend in the world, who was texting me today, was texting me today, asking me about, if that wasn't the best AEW pay-per-view, what was? And I said, the first Double or Nothing, of course. That was the best. You had Cody and Dustin, and you had Jericho and Omega, and you had the debut of Moxley, and the Bucks and Luchas, and all that kind of stuff. So I was a fan of that one. So I would say that one was better. Mike says he agrees with the finish. You don't want to overbook it. Yes, I agree. You want to keep things simple. I totally agree. I'm not saying that it was a bad finish. What I'm saying is all of the stuff with everybody else, with Wardlow and with Hager and with FTR and all that, I'm betting that all that was taped. Okay. So the fans don't get to see those guys live. The only people they got to see all the Inner Circle live, they got to see MJF and Sean Spears. That's it. So that's my only contention is I would have at least brought them out and done something. And, maybe when Sammy was bringing out the golf cart, maybe he has something on the back where they're tied to it and they can't get away or something. I don't know. But the fans missed out on seeing FTR and Wardlow. That's my only critique. I'm not saying overbook it. I'm just saying do something with him. So we get Sweet Tea for the Worker Man, and then we will finish talking about The Fiend and what you guys have said about him. All right. Before we talk about The Fiend, I don't want to forget to hand out the high spots and turd sandwiches because we always do that every episode on the Buy Bomb Wrestling Podcast. My turd sandwich of the week is the release of Aleister Black. And the reason that's my turd sandwich of the week, it's not for obvious reasons. It's for the fact that they seemed like they were going to do something with him. You know, they were bringing him back at his re-debut, repackaging, all this other kind of stuff, and they got rid of him. So I just didn't think that one didn't make a lot of sense to me for those kind of reasons. And for everything that Aleister said in his Twitch stream today about how Vince was behind him and creative was behind him, and they just couldn't pinpoint what they wanted Aleister Black to be on the main roster. He even confirmed that he made a pitch to go back to NXT and it didn't happen. Now that I don't know why. So I don't know. Mike says that Aleister needs to go to New Japan, him and Buddy Murphy both. Yes, that's a perfect place for him. I think New Japan fits Aleister Black better than AEW does, if I'm being honest. I really do. My high spot of the week. I've got two. Do yourself a favor and go back and watch the Drew McIntyre Kofi Kingston match from Monday Night Raw. I highly recommend it for any wrestling fan, whether you prefer AEW over WWE or not. Drew McIntyre versus Kofi Kingston, those guys put on a show. Go watch it. And my second high spot of the week is the return of Adam Cole, baby. It is finally time for him to come back. I dig it, and I'm super happy that he's returned. So those are high spots and turd sandwiches. Let me scroll through here. Let me see what you guys have said about The Fiend, and then I will go back through that. Again, I'm going to read these Facebook comments because you people who are watching on YouTube cannot see them. So, my dad, I'm sorry, Dad, I missed this comment. Mark Henry is better heard, not seen. I can agree with that. Okay. In reference to Bray Wyatt, The Fiend, Andy says on YouTube, he says The Fiend versus Rollins at Hell in a Cell was almost as bad as losing to Goldberg. I don't know. I really don't know. Losing to Goldberg, I get that. I get the point of why they did that, because you didn't want to have Roman Reigns versus The Fiend. They were anticipating that move and it ultimately didn't work out. I understand why that Goldberg beat him. The Rollins thing, I don't know. That whole thing just seemed weird. I understand the finish. I get it, but I don't know. It's just kind of strange. The whole thing was just kind of strange because then Rollins dropped the title at the Saudi show. That was just really weird to me. Anyway, okay. Mike Irwin. The Fiend should have been a monster heel, but we just mentioned Hell in a Cell against Rollins, Goldberg, and yes, with Randy Orton. They had a monster that they've been missing since The Undertaker and Kane. The fans were behind it. Vince can't let his employees get over themselves. The fans wanted to see The Fiend run all over everyone. Bray Wyatt's put too much into a company that has done nothing but bury him. Mike, sorry, I missed this comment. He agrees with older wrestlers being brought into AEW. It's going to have to change their name to TNAEWCW. I agree with that. Yes, I agree with that. Dad says that The Fiend has run its course. He thinks the fans are tired of The Fiend. Needs to go back to the old Bray Wyatt. WWE wanted him to be the next Mick Foley, and that'll never happen. I don't think they wanted him to be the next Mick Foley, but I can see him going back to the regular old Bray Wyatt because I think the fans were behind that Bray Wyatt just as much as they are The Fiend. Having said that, I don't know that The Fiend has run his course. I think Bray Wyatt has put a lot into those characters. I completely agree with that. And they got over in a big way. But I think at some point, fans do get tired of him running over people. You build this monster who is unbeatable. And it's ultimately going to hurt whoever beats him in the end. And that's not good for anybody. Doesn't matter who you would have brought along to beat The Fiend, it would have hurt them. So why not put it on Goldberg, a guy who's only here twice a year, and is going to turn around and drop the title anyway? Okay, why not? I just don't think it's entertaining for the Fiend to just run over everybody. I think the biggest problem that they did was they booked themselves into a corner when the Fiend won the title. That was totally unnecessary to me. Eventually, yes, the way that the Fiend character works, he's going to have to go after the champion. Excuse me. He's going to have to go after the top guy. But he just did not need to be champion. And I think that maybe, Andy, to your point, that no matter how that match ended with Rollins, it's what hurt everybody. I think that could have been done in a way so that the Fiend doesn't win the title, and that's that. But then there was so much backlash on Rollins for it, and so much backlash on WWE for it, that again, they booked themselves into a corner. And they could not do anything with it. So putting the title on him, Mike, thank you for agreeing with me. They should have kept him away from the title. Putting the title on him was their first mistake. So I don't think, though, that you can blame WWE Creative for putting the title on him. And here's why I say that. He was the hottest character in the company. So they felt like they had no choice but to put the title on him. And in any other circumstance, a character that's that hot that then wins the championship, it's like, oh, yes, he's won the championship. But with that kind of character, you're like, crap, he's won the championship. Now what do you do? Everybody would have been, nobody benefits from the Fiend being champion. Andy says the Fiend should be a special attraction on a weekly appearance. I agree, and the Fiend should have been bigger than the title. Yes, I agree with that, which means that he didn't need the title. He just didn't need it. And that's fine. Look at The Undertaker, man. I know everybody compares the Fiend to The Undertaker a whole lot, and it's a very easy comparison to make. Look at The Undertaker. One of the most decorated careers in the history of the wrestling business, spanned over 30 years. Undefeated at WrestleMania 21-0 until he lost to Brock, which I won't get into that. My point is, though, The Undertaker had one of the greatest characters, if not the greatest character ever in the wrestling business. And he only held the world title like 4 times. Now, I think he won the World Heavyweight Championship a couple more times in the 2000s. But as far as a 30-year career, if Hulk Hogan would have had a 30-year career, he would have been a 30-time champion. You know what I mean? So The Undertaker only had it a handful of times. My point being that he didn't need it. He was The Undertaker. So you could have made the Fiend into something like that the Fiend does not need the title. Mike, yes, I made this point earlier and you were not on here, so I'll make it again. You said that Braun Strowman was hot at one point and they didn't put the title on him until it was too late. Need to find a happy middle. Yes, I made the point earlier that Braun Strowman was hot around WrestleMania 34 and he should have had the title, but he didn't have it. Dad says Mick Foley only had the title once. No, Dad, Mick Foley had the title 1, 2, 3. He had it I think he had it a couple times. 4 times maybe. As he and Rock switched it back and forth around Royal Rumble in 99. And then he won it back at SummerSlam 99 and he dropped it to Triple H. So I think a couple times. So anyway, there's a lot of arguments to be made about the Fiend. We can go back and forth about the Fiend and Bray Wyatt and, if he should be his old character, his new character, somewhere in between. I was a fan of the stuff with Randy Orton, honestly. I'm probably in the minority for that, but I was a fan of the Randy Orton and Alexa Bliss stuff. I thought this was some of the best stuff that Alexa Bliss has ever done, and I'm an Alexa Bliss fan. You guys know that. I'm an Alexa Bliss fan, but I was a huge fan of what they were doing. Unfortunately, though, if you read the rumored innuendo online, Bray Wyatt has taken a leave of absence due to his personal struggles with the death of Brody Lee. That's been well documented, and that he came back for WrestleMania just to be able to do that program, to wrap that program with Orton up, and then he's gone again. So I hate that for Bray. I hate that for his family. Obviously, fans hate that for his character, but more importantly for him personally. So maybe we'll see the Fiend return at some point when we have fans back, because they could do some cool stuff with the Fiend without fans, but with the fans, that's where you get that reaction. So maybe he'll be bigger once we get to that point. All right, guys, we have covered a whole lot. We've gone a little over an hour on this episode. I appreciate everybody tuning in. As I get ready to wrap up here, I'm going to run down again where you can find the show and all that kind of stuff. So if you got any last minute comments and questions, throw them my way. We'll see what we can address, and then we will hightail it out of here. Hang on one second. Swig of sweet tea again for the working man. Yes, I stole that from Stone Cold Steve Austin. Don't judge me. All right. This has been the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast. I'm your phenomenal host, Chris Belcher. Thank you so much for tuning in, whether you're listening on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitch, wherever you are at. Mike says, send Smurfette my love. I will do so. I will say hi to my wife for you. Oh, good times. So make sure you check us out every Monday and Thursday, wherever you find your podcast, and on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Play, all the things. Make sure you check us out. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button. Give us 5 stars. Make sure you follow us on social media at PBW Podcast. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. I am at Chris Belcher 24. You can buy a t-shirt from us at prowrestlingtees.com/PBW Podcast. Got some great designs up there. A couple by our buddy, Mr. Andy York. Thanks for doing that, Andy. Appreciate it. And thanks again for you hosting the Double or Nothing post show the other night. It was very well received by our audience. There will be more AEW stuff to come in the near future. Make sure that you, again, buy a t-shirt, subscribe to all of our channels, check out our shows every Monday and Thursday. And if you forget all of those things, there's a fancy ticker right down below to tell you about all of them. Make sure that you check us out. Make sure you send us your love, your comments, your questions. We greatly appreciate that interaction more than you know. We're more than happy to address all those things on the air and interact with our listeners. From a tag team partner, Jared Justice, who could not be here tonight, for our buddy, Mr. Andy York, for tuning in, all of the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast family, we appreciate your love and support. My name is Chris Belcher, and we will catch you guys down the road.